Good afternoon, students. I hope you can see and hear me well. Today we're going to be covering another lecture brief, a shortened version of a lecture that we had previously. And today we're going to be talking about the course Hotel and Restaurant Management. I'm the lecturer, Can Siktayevic Baymukhanov. The lecture outline is going to be usual. At the beginning, we're going to have an overview of the previous lecture. Then we're going to start a new lecture. Today, we're going to be talking about the lecture of the week 2, which was about evolution of management. And at the end of the lecture, I'm going to give you an assignment. So previous lecture was the first lecture of this course. So it was an introduction. And during the introduction, we talked about the purpose of the discipline and its objectives. We have listed the structure of the discipline. We talked about all the 15 lectures. We mentioned that the first lecture was introduction, the last is going to be the overview of the previous lectures and basically the overview of the whole course and preparation for the final exam. In between, we're going to have 2 midterms and etc. And then we had a discussion about management. We talked about management and thought about it as a science and an art. And at the end of the lecture, we talked about assignments and how we're planning to grade you. Now let's start the current lecture. Actually, this is a very informative and long lecture. That is why today, now due to time limitations, we're going to cover it briefly and in a fast manner. So let's start it. First, I'd like to talk about the evolution of management thought before we start talking about the science of management. So we can say that, the human being is a social being, and where we have group of people, we have like relation, we have hierarchy, and we have basically some people who consider themselves as leaders and etc. In the early ages, in the early days of humanity, we had tribes, and those tribes were managed by their heads, and usually they were a mighty man, and they had physical strength, mental capacities, and intelligence. And we do believe that this was kind of the start of management thought. Those mighty men were those people who kind of started to make some roles that today we know as management. When we talk about pre-scientific management, we talk not about like early days of management, but we talk about the time when civilization was found and civilization began. So, as soon as the tribes turned into more complicated and larger systems, and we had warships, religion, we had different like production, transportation, war affairs, and etc. We say that the pre-scientific management was found, and we usually talk about ancient civilizations, especially Roman Empire, Greece, and like religious cults and sects. When also we talk about pre-scientific management, we can talk about different revolutions. Before the scientific management was found, we had distinct changes in kind of management and in the way how the world was managed. We do not call those like leading and roles and the thoughts as management, because usually management refers to business affairs and what was done during those times. We usually call it administration and administrative revolution. So the first administrative revolution took place in 4,000-5,000 BC. It was done in ancient East, where the caste system was formed. The society was divided into different castes: caste of religious, people, caste of warriors, caste of workers, and caste of peasants. Then the second administrative revolution happened. It took place after 3 to 2,000 years, and it happened in the ancient Mesopotamia. And one of the largest and the key achievements was the Code of Hammurabi. Here we have an example. It was one of the first laws ever written in the world. So this was like the second administrative revolution. Then after millennia, we had the third administrative revolution took place again in Mesopotamia, and it was done by Nebuchadnezzar, or Nebuchadnezzar as the second, as we are familiar. It was done when his empire extended and added larger territories, including Egypt, and also include Palestine, nowadays Israel, etc. And during those times, mega buildings were built, and there was a system of production control, and that was a huge achievement on the country level. Then the fourth industrial revolution took place after the Industrial Revolution. As you can see here, when it comes to management, it kind of was on the level of the government, on the level of the state, because of the object, because of the largeness of affairs. That is why all these things were achieved on the level of the country government. When it comes to the business and when it comes to production, there was no such change until the Industrial Revolution, and it was due to the fact that production took place in the small workshops, and I mean they worked only 5-6 people. So there was a master, there was an apprentice, and there were trainees and the others. Of course, there were guilds, they united, but still there was no need for delegation, for management, for control, for planning, and etc. They just did their craft. When it comes to the written documents and the things that inspire us today, and in some sense are considered to be the foundations of modern management, we can look at the ancient East and see Sun Tzu, or Sun Tzu, and we can look at his book called Art of War, where he describes some philosophical and military thinking approach. And a lot of managers nowadays still, especially in the East, get inspired by his book. When it comes to the Western countries, we have Niccolo Machiavelli, who was a Renaissance-era diplomat of Italy, and he wrote a book, The Prince, or El Prince. And he is considered to be the father of political philosophy and political science. His book still is very influential, and a lot of managers and leaders got inspired by him, even though many of his approaches are nowadays considered to be unethical. Now let's talk about Industrial Revolution and birth of management. The Industrial Revolution took place somewhere around 1760, and by the beginning of the 19th century, there were some pioneers who started to think on management. Here we have a list of them: James Watt, Robinson Bolton, Robert Owens, Professor Babbage, and etc. We can say that they did a lot of interesting things, and they had some interesting works done, but the contribution to the evolution of management was little. That is why we do not consider them as founders of modern day management. When it comes to the modern day management, we can say that we have different stages and different kind of schools. So here we have the diagram and the list of them. So pre-classical school, we've talked about that. Then the classical school, which actually laid the foundation of modern day management. And this school divides into two. It was the scientific management, and actually the scientific management kind of based the foundation of the modern day management. And the kind of founder of this movement was Friedrich Taylor. When it comes to the other school and the other kind of branch of classic school is the administrative management, and this school was founded by Henri Fayol, who is actually considered to be the person who kind of found the modern day management. Then we have a Neoclassical School. This is the school that talked and studied the human behavior, and basically this is the school that laid foundation of management from the point of view of human resources. Then of course we have the contemporary school, which is like modern school, and it is still developing. There are many approaches, many schools, but due to the reason that we are studying hotel and restaurant management, contemporary schools are not so much of our interest. We are more interested in people, and we are more interested in the interaction between people. That is why we are not going to focus on this school in detail, but later on we're going to be discussing about that. So now let's talk about the classical school of management, or scientific management especially. So here we have a picture of Friedrich Winslow Taylor, who is the founder of scientific management. He was the first person who used a scientific approach toward organization. He conducted several researches, and those researches kind of laid the foundation of management. We're not going to go into detail. You're going to get the assignment to kind of Google and look through their like life and their achievements. So that's going to be your whole task. But for now, that is what we want to give you. Here we have the principles of scientific management that were coined by Friedrich Taylor. So I'm not going to read them out loud. I mean, you can stop this video and read it yourself. But I'd like you to learn these principles by heart. Now let's talk about the other person, whom we actually consider to be the person who found modern day management. It is Henri Fayol, a French scholar, who kind of not just studied management in a scientific way, but actually said that management was a different and independent way of like human activity, and actually a different kind of branch. That is why he said like production is different, management is different, trade is different, and etc. That is why he was the first person who saw management as a different function. So nowadays we do believe that Henri Fayol is the real father of modern management. He also kind of wrote his principles of management, and he has like 14 of them listed. So you're going to have time to read them and discuss. We can discuss them during the practical class. But now, due to time limitations, I'm not going to focus on them. Also, Henri Fayol like coined and wrote the basic functions of management. He actually mentioned the 5 of them. So we have planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. But nowadays we have only 4 of them. So on the right you can see the 4 like fundamental functions of management: planning, organizing, leading or motivating, and controlling. Please be aware that we're going to dedicate a special lecture on the functions of management, and then we're going to focus on every single function separately during a different lecture. That's why I'm not going to focus on that anymore. Now let's talk about like Neoclassical School or Human Relations School. This is the school that was founded by Elton Mayo. Here we have the list of other kind of prominent figures in this field, we can say that the Neoclassical School found out that humans have a considerable influence on the production, on management, and etc. That is why they so very important to not just study the processes, not just study the logistics and the moving preparation of goods, but also group dynamics and how people interact, what motivates them, and etc. So Elton Meyer kind of was a Harvard professor and kind of who coined that we should be, the management should be more people-oriented. So also he declares that logical factors were far less important than emotional factors in determining productive efficiency. So in order to make labor workers more productive, he coined that we need to study emotional factors and behavior. And now let's talk about the behavioral management. This is basically another branch of Neoclassical School. One of the most prominent kind of members of this school is Abraham Maslow. Yeah, so Abraham Maslow coined a very influential hierarchy of needs. So we have 5 needs, yeah, that are listed here. So on the bottom we have the psychological needs, then we have safety needs, love and belonging, social needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. When it comes to hospitality industry and hotel and restaurant industries, the core product of hotel industry is accommodation, and we can see it as the physical and basic need for shelter. When it comes to the restaurant, the core product of a restaurant is food and beverages, and food and beverages are located also on the base of his pyramid, water and food. But when it comes to the hotel, also kind of the shelter should be safe. Yeah, the food should be safe to consume, so they should be healthy. Also, we can say that the restaurant is a place where we communicate. So we have the love and belonging kind of need. Also the status, yeah, especially if you go to an expensive restaurant or you stay in an expensive hotel, it also is going to kind of boost your status. So that is why we can say that even though the hotel and restaurant industries kind of fulfill the basic need, it can have the auxiliary product that can be strengthened by security, health, belonging sense, and status. Yeah, remember that. And the last person I want to kind of mention is Douglas McGregor, and his X and Y theory. So basically, X and Y theory tells us that we have 2 types of management and 2 types of staff. So X theory tells us that people are kind of lazy, they don't really want to work. That is why the manager should be authoritarian, and they always should kind of control, limit, and etc. They kind of have a carrot and stick manner of management. And when it comes to the theory Y, it on a basic level tells us that we have a very kind of talented employees who don't need to be kind of controlled. They are self-motivated. That is why the manager should be liberating and developmental. This is on a basic level. Of course, we're going to cover and talk about that in detail. Also, we have another theory that is related but a bit different, called theory Z. We're going to talk about that in a different lecture, hopefully, or during the practical class. But now I'd like to say a few words about contemporary school and then give you an assignment, finish the lecture. Contemporary school is, the school that I want you to just know and kind of remind yourself that management is going beyond like classical school and neoclassical school, which studied human behavior. These are the schools that have different approach. They focus on system approach. They look at an organization and look at management as a system. Then we have quantitative, where they try to calculate and assign and kind of look at the system as if it was a mathematical equation. Then we have a contingence, IT, and bailout and recovery approaches that are quite interesting, but not very relevant to the content of this course. But for your general knowledge and for your self-study, you can dedicate time to look and Google it. And if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask. And now let me give you an assignment. You're going to have 2 assignments. The first one is to choose one of the following scholars and prepare a presentation. So basically choose one, prepare a presentation and kind of show it and present it to us. The second assignment is to choose another 5 scholars from the list. So we just don't want you to just pick one, read about one, and that's it. So for your self-study, I want you to choose also 5, read about them, and prepare questions for the practical class. So when your course mate presents on somebody whom you have studied, then you can ask a question. If nobody did that, you can ask a question me. So we're going to discuss about that. So basically that's it for today. It was my pleasure. Have a nice day and bye.